Welcome everyone to the ITS Process for Service Excellence Training. I'm Rian Copeland. Thank you for coming. We can look at the next slide, Jen, and talk about the logistics for this session. Super. So we will be recording this session so that we can make it available to everyone in ITS. We're going to use chat for questions. We've had several breaks planned to address those questions. So please, as soon as they come to your mind, feel free to put them in the chat. And then once we hit those breaks, we'll address them. Any questions that we can't answer today, we'll capture, and then we'll make sure that we answer them as we get that information. And then we're going to share all the questions and answers with everyone in ITS, in addition to sharing this recording. So I'm Rian Copeland. I'm the Assistant Director for Support Services. And again, thanks for coming. I think we can talk about our goals for the session if we want to move to the next slide. Super. So today, we're going to talk about baseline knowledge and streamlined core processes. As you know, ITS offers a huge variety of services. So what we're trying to do here is talk about processes that are flexible and accommodating. We understand that a process cannot be one size fits all for everything that we do in ITS. So if we talk about something today that doesn't make sense or doesn't align with how your service runs, please put a question in the chat and let's talk about how these processes can be modified to accommodate your particular needs. Because we do think that what we're going to talk about today is something that can be a standard across all of ITS and really help us work together. Next slide. Great, thanks. So these are our leaders, and this slide represents every executive director in ITS. And all of these executive directors support this service excellence initiative. That's why you're seeing their faces today. This is not just something that the folks doing the presentation have cooked up. This is across ITS. Everyone from our leadership down really believes in this process and this training and why we need to focus on service excellence. Our project sponsors are Bob and Diane Jones. You can see their slides there. And then we can move to the next slide. And here's another view of the lead team, and this is how they were in a previous meeting. And I wanted to include this slide to acknowledge the current situation. It is not our normal working conditions. This is not how we had anticipated we would deliver this training. So it is kind of different. Sometimes it's a little difficult, and I do want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this training. The situation isn't ideal. We're all doing the best we can. So thanks for having us in your living rooms, your basements, wherever you're coming to us from today. We really appreciate it. And now I'd like to turn it over to the sponsors of our project, Diane Jones and Bob Jones.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rian and team, and hello, everyone that's looking in virtually. We so appreciate you coming. I have to say, service excellence, when we started this out, we had so many different ways in which we were looking at the work that we were doing. And I have to tell you, upon Robbie's arrival, he certainly lit us all up with a lot of things that were all about consistency, unity, and standards. And I have to say, while we were all doing those really great jobs that we have been doing all along, what we weren't doing is doing it in a unified way. And Rian talked about the situation not being ideal around training and service excellence and how we're dealing with the things that we're doing today. But I would say that this is more of an opportunity for us to see how when we do things consistently all together at one time, how we really can change things and how we can do things that set out standards that allow us to provide a level of service excellence that no one's seen from us, because what they then experience is the same thing every time, no matter who they're dealing with. And so that's really what this is all about. We've come a long way, and I really think that we have some really exciting times coming. And so all of the adjectives that we use today around service excellence and laser focus is really made up in what we are doing for ourselves and for the people that we love today. So let's take this as an opportunity to recognize that the standards that we're proving it to ourselves now. And as we continue to move forward with the training and our service excellence, I believe that we're all looking at things a little differently in terms of how we can deliver. And I think that every mistake we make is an opportunity for us to do it better and to recognize how we can deliver. Bob?
So it's always a pleasure to take a hand off for my sister from another mister. So thank you, Diane. Everything you said is very true. So there is no more important training than the one we're doing today. The migration to a new tool, the least important thing is actually the new tool. The most important thing is agreeing on process and how we're going to all work together and represent ourselves as one ITS. The proof is in the pudding that this works. I'll point to some work we did in service excellence about a year and a half ago where we defined incident management standards. We have data to prove that we cut down wait time in the form of 70 to 140 FTE for people that were waiting to get incidents resolved, and we've shown that data a lot. So one ITS working together is much more powerful than 80 different services in ITS doing things the way that they think they should for each service. We are more powerful together than we are as individuals. Today is all about that. None of this is particularly complex. This is just agreeing on some basics about things like what is an incident, how are we going to collectively agree we're going to work incidents together, problem, knowledge. It's really all basic stuff. And then once we get to the new tool, the transition should be pretty easy because we're sharing the same expectations from one another. So really, I'm looking at the people in this session as leaders. You are the leaders in ITS. People like me are just here to remove barriers so you can lead the way in our service to people that are trying to change the world. So thank you so much for being here and supporting this initiative. There's nothing more important than this right now. And I think there's no better time to do it. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to, I believe, Phil.
Oh, it's Rian.
Oh, hi,
Hello.
Rian.
Thank you to Bob and thank you to Diane for those inspirational words that help us understand how this training helps us align with Robbie's vision for ITS and our goal of laser focus on customer service. Here's what we're going to cover today, as you can see in the slide. But I also want you to know that additional training and resources are under development. We realize that the work does not stop here. This is just a stepping stone on our journey. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Phil Ray, the Assistant Director of Service Center and Operations. Phil?
In addition to taking a process owner role for some of our processes today. So the Service Center is our front door to support for most of ITS services. And we get to talk with about 40,000 faculty, staff, and students and other community members each year. So we're very deep into the process and support, process of operations and support for our services. And today I wanted to talk about the different classes of tickets that we are dealing with and we're going to be dealing with in the future, how those relate in terms of recording, measuring, and managing that whole range of work that we do together in operating and supporting our IT services and supporting the campus community using those. So on the next slide, we'll start to get into a little bit of detail here. So what these I'm going to call them classes, what these classes of tickets mean. So for those of you who are comfortable in the ITIL world, these will be familiar, but these are also really a practical thing for us. So some of these definitions will be new to some of you, but I do want to say that with the Service Excellence Initiative, we are introducing a number of changes for how we work together and how we operate those services. And that really starts with how we label and define this operational work. So this slide is foundational to our Service Excellence Initiative, and we really want all of you to leave today knowing these terms, being able to explain the differences between them, and we want you to be confident that you could pull up this slide later with a new hire on your team and talk this through with them and help them understand. So let me run through some of these details. We are making a big push to distinguish more than we ever have between requests, incidents, and problems. So I'm going to focus on those first. So request, right? Our definition here really is about asking for something to be provided. So these typically, 99% of these really are coming direct from end users. So that is them asking for help. Maybe they don't remember their password, or maybe they need the SPSS statistics software installed on their machine. And we want to distinguish that from incident, where something is broken, some part of our service, some part of our infrastructure, something that ITS is responsible for. So a user might call in and they may not distinguish between they need assistance in some way and something's broken, but we're going to have to, right? So if they call in and say, hey, I'm trying to log into Wolverine Access, I get this crazy long error message that starts with uncaught exception and then a bunch of gibberish. I've cleared my cache and cookies. I've tried different browsers. I've restarted my computer. It's still happening. Well, there's probably something going on with our servers that's driving that activity. That's something that sounds like it's broken, and we want to treat it like it's broken. Why is it important to make that distinction? I think it's really important at two levels. One is actually the long-term strategic vision of how we work, because we can use requests and incidents and that data in different ways to guide improvements. So if our infrastructure is breaking down, we're getting a number of incidents that represent those breakdowns and the need to do some fixes, then we can concentrate on stabilizing our systems. So incident records as a whole can inform us about the stability of our systems and our services. And if a customer is having to reach out to us for assistance or intervention in order to just use our services, then there's some improvement work that we could do in terms of streamlining. So the request records as a whole can inform us about how independently we've set things up for our customers to be able to do their work with our systems, or how often do we set things up where they really need our help to actually use the IT services. It also comes into play in daily operations, and I'm going to speak to that in a future slide, where we really have the organizational commitment to prioritize break-fix issues on a daily basis and work those first. So one change I want to speak to in relation to requests and incidents is that about 2/3 of what comes in through the ITS Service Center actually is a request for something to be provisioned, some assistance, take me through how to, give me some information, help me with my password. We are going to track these as requests. We're going to track everything that comes in initially as a request, because 2/3 of them actually are. And then as we need to, we will break those out into incidents when we find something's broken. So let me move on to significant incident. Significant incident, we all know and love and hate. Something's broken and it's in a big way. We need all hands on deck to tackle this. So our example everybody's going to cringe at again is, hey, the power's down at the Mac. Everything's down, including power, backup power. Almost every service is down. We've improved how we handle significant incidents quite a bit in the last 2 years. There's not a ton of change coming out for this process right now, but it's a key part of our overall service excellence processes. So we're addressing that here. Problem. Okay, so this is something that is new for many folks in ITS, and it's helpful, I think, to talk to the differences between problem and incident. So let's say that we start getting calls at the service center about error messages that customers are getting when they try to use mCommunity. As we troubleshoot, maybe we find that Firefox works fine, but Chrome just doesn't seem to work at all. So we can help customers by advising them to use Firefox. And if that lets them do what they need to do, then we've addressed that incident for that customer. But overall, mCommunity should work with Chrome. So we have some work to do to understand why that's an issue, how we can fix it. So the investigation and identifying the root cause of that incompatibility is really the problem process. It's something that we may take our time with because we can have users do their business as a workaround with Firefox. But we want to dig in and find out, hey, maybe this problem started with an update to Chrome. With some reasonable time, our developers can update the M community directory code and fix that compatibility issue. And when that fix gets rolled out, we've solved the issue permanently. We won't continue to get incidents that need a workaround. The problem has been used in pockets of ITS, and with the Service Excellence Initiative and rollout of Team Dynamics, we'll be using that a lot more. So that's a fairly big operational change for us. I should say that we've got a lot of room to go before we really get mature on using process consistently across the org and smoothly. But with Team Dynamics, really, we're going to start with it. And that starting point is to create problem records with much more frequency when we have incidents that we think have a common cause that needs some investigation. So we're also going to touch base on change. Our change definition is on the slide here. And the reason we're really paying attention to that, Janet's going to talk quite a bit to that, is that we need to make some improvements in how we communicate and coordinate changes in advance so that we can reduce our risk and reduce the risk that a change that we make is going to have unintended consequences. So last week we had an intentional firewall change that had the unintended consequences of taking a number of servers offline and creating a significant incident. Knowledge. Knowledge is last on this list, but really first in my heart. We have a tremendous opportunity to better support each other and our customers by better sharing our expertise. So we handle about 185,000 contacts a year from our customers that are logged as incidents and requests. And in the vast majority of those cases, we are really able to provide the information they are looking for, provide the how-to, provide the fix, but we don't often capture what we learned in solving one of those so that we don't often take the opportunity to make that solution findable and usable by anybody else who either may have that issue or might be helping somebody with that issue. So that's what we're planning to address here as we improve our knowledge process. So let's go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about relationships between these.
Yep.
So on our pyramid slide, it's just not updating on my screen. That was my delay. Sorry there. A lot of this comes into play. Actually, kind of we get into a little bit of how Team Dynamics works and how that guides how we're going to relate some of these things together. So many of the items coming into the Service Center are requests. I think I mentioned this before. I'll repeat it. We're going to initially assume that as we start talking with a customer and start interviewing them about what they need assistance with, that it's a request. If we, as we go through that interview process and we realize, hey, actually they're describing symptoms that seem like something in our service is broken, we are going to switch that classification, and Team Dynamics makes that easy, to an incident, and then be able to work it in that process. Incidents today in ServiceNow, when we have a cluster of incidents that really are many customers calling about the same thing because something is broken and it has a widespread effect, we have been relating those to what we call a parent incident. Going forward in our process, we're actually going to relate those to a problem record. We're going to create a new problem record, and we're going to create a parent-child relationship so that all the related incidents are connected to that problem. We have good evidence that says how widespread is this issue? What is the range of symptoms that people are experiencing? And when we start making progress on that problem investigation and want to report out to our customers, we can log progress updates and comments in our problem record and have those cascade out to all the incident records and all the users who we've been in contact with about those symptoms. We also will find cases where, hey, as those incidents start to come in, the scope of this issue is big. It is a significant incident. So significant incidents can have that same kind of child-parent relationship between incidents and significant incidents. There's a little more here. Incidents, you see the pyramid here. So incidents can have that parent-child relationship with everything deeper in that pyramid. Significant incidents, we might have two significant incidents that really have the same root cause. We can associate them with a single problem record, and maybe we're going to have multiple problems that we roll up into one operational change to get deployed. So Team Dynamics lets us associate multiple incidents, significant incidents, and problems to a change that we are planning and managing as a single entity. Alongside all of this, and especially with incident request and problem, we are going to be making much more use of knowledge, and we're going to talk a little later in the presentation about that. So let's jump to the ticket lifecycle
Hi, Phil.
slide. Yes.
Sorry, I've got the new slide up. We're starting to run a little bit long on our agenda, so you've got about 10 minutes left until our questions break right now.
Thank you. Thanks. So this, there's not a lot new in the overview of ticket life cycles. The one thing that's interesting in Team Dynamics is that the life cycle, the status of a ticket, whether it's new, it's active and being worked on, we've put it on hold for some reason, or we've wrapped up all the work, we've closed it out. The specific statuses that we're going to use apply across all sorts of tickets. So across change, across significant incident, across request and incident, really in the same way. So we will have some details that we roll out in the following training to provide guidance on when to use the specific statuses. But there is an overall life cycle between starts out as new, we work on it. In some cases, we have to put things on hold, then we end up closing things out. Let me get into request and incident in a little more detail. I'm going to talk to some order of which we'd like folks in ITS to use in a standard way, key performance indicators, communication standards, and a little more detail on life cycle of requests and incidents. So which to work first? I said earlier that we have made an organizational decision that we're going to prioritize break-fix issues first. So as ITS teams across the org are working on incidents and requests, this slide shows the more detailed order that we're expecting everybody to use. So as we create the project team and operationally, we create dashboards and reports of open incidents and requests, we will use this order in those dashboards and reports. And as you create or modify dashboards and reports to show and manage the work for yourself or your team, we are asking everybody to use this order in that configuration so that the dashboards and reports that we are working from to figure out what do I have to do next really reflects this order that we are prioritizing significant incidents, break-fix issues or incidents before requests, and then working to high priority and tackling things for VIPs before non-VIPs. So on to key performance indicators. There's a lot of material here, but this one's really short. We are keeping this super simple in terms of key performance indicators, metrics that we are applying to requests and incidents. And really, we're just applying it at this point to incidents. So our key performance indicators that we're going to report on, measure, and monitor extensively are really about break-fix issues, incidents, and we are continuing to bring forward something we set last year that for VIPs, we're shooting for resolution in 3 days. For non-VIPs, everybody else, 5 days. So I think this is really achievable. In part because of the added distinction that we're making between something is broken and would you provide, and that priority order that we are setting. So enough on KPIs. Communication standards. So we handle thousands and thousands of contacts with our customers, and we have excellent communications. For the most part, we get great feedback when we show up as professional, knowledgeable, efficient, and timely. Sometimes we do make a mistake though. We'll let a ticket sit. Maybe it's difficult, it's confusing, it's not clear what needs to be done. Maybe the customer communication to us has been unclear, but things can sit. It's not a high frequency problem, but when we do make that mistake, it can create a really terrible experience for the customer. So we are setting explicit expectations for how often we should communicate. So this applies to both incidents and requests. If the ticket's open, if it's really actively being worked, we're expecting that the person assigned to that ticket will communicate with the customer every 2 days or even more often. And if it's been on hold for some reason, maybe it's waiting for a vendor, then make the commitment on next steps. Let the customer know when that follow-up will be. I want to speak to the 5 W's a little bit next. So these have been rolled out in the last year. Our focus here is on when we send email to communicate with the customer, and we're going to be typically doing that through our ticketing system. And when we note progress in our ticketing system for our colleagues, we need to do a really excellent job of communicating in a way that our customers understand and our colleagues understand. So we have organized that into the 5 W's. What's the short version? What's the detailed version of what's going on? What's the issue? What's the problem? What's already been done? What's needed next? And when we get to that solution, summarizing in a crisp way, what is that solution? Getting that clear, getting that documented right in that ticket so that future analysis doesn't have to dig into every single element. We've got some slides here on the details. I'm going to go a little faster through these. The short version, right? That's going to be typically 4 to 10 words that summarize what's going on with this. We want that to work in a list of incidents to help people quickly see what is this thing about. In the detailed version, we want to make sure we're capturing the customer's words and capturing the important details so that if they tell us, okay, I'm on a Mac, not a Windows machine, and I've got an older Mac, that we capture that level of detail to be sure that we can not ask them again later in the troubleshooting process. We also want to capture really especially as we hand off, what's been done already on the next slide. If we're handing off a ticket across ITS, let's be clear. Hey, we did this troubleshooting, we gathered this information, and then indicate to that next team what's needed to move this forward. I've certainly seen tickets flow between teams where it's not at all apparent why was it moved to that next team, what's being asked of that group. That wastes time for everybody. We do have a habit that sometimes our last communication to the customer is a thanks, you're all set now. And looking back at that ticket of what happened with this, how was it resolved, can we learn anything from it going into the future? We miss that opportunity sometimes. So as we resolve tickets, we really want to do that 5th W, which is documenting what the solution is. Wrapping up on request and incident. So request and incident lifecycle. We do have a number of changes that I want to touch base on. We talked a little bit about that we are going to initially log incoming things as requests. It's a pretty big change from ServiceNow when we are logging almost everything as an incident. With this service excellence initiative, we are also defining a more robust triage step. So determining whether something is broken before something is broken, therefore needs to be transformed from a request into an incident, assessing priority, categorizing, determining if the incident relates to a known problem, or if there's evidence of a new problem that needs to be logged, or if there's an SI going on. So we'll detail this process out with additional training and documentation, but I wanted to mention it as a key change that's coming. I do want to note, as you'll see in this slide, that through every stage of the life cycle, we are bringing in some new expectations into play about using knowledge, communicating, as I've mentioned, and getting accurate on when and why would we put something on hold or change the incident state. So we're going to address those in more detail either in the rest of this presentation or in future information coming out. So to wrap up with request and incident, as you can guess, this is an area I'm passionate about, and we'll continue to head up, refine the process as we go to make it better, more effective for everybody, especially our customers. And Maria is one of my key folks who's helping me manage this on a day in, day out basis. So I have been talking crazy fast nonstop, but probably run over time. But I do want to take this time to answer questions that have come up. What questions do we have in chat?
So thanks, Phil. We have a question, a great question from James Charters. He says he'd be interested in hearing what it means to actually resolve an incident, that he's seen lots of incidents that are left open as a reminder to fix the root cause, or they're left open because they're waiting for a period of time to confirm the incident is truly resolved. What would you recommend in those cases?
Excellent, great question. So two different cases, and I'll address each one. So incidents do not need to be left open going forward as a reminder that we need to find the root cause. Instead, what we're going to do is, if the user is back up and running because we've been able to provide them a reasonable workaround, right? Maybe that's we got them a loaner computer, maybe that's they need to use a different browser even though it's not their preferred browser. We can close that incident, but we can create a problem record that drives the process of getting to that root cause. So that's going to be a shift for us of using the problem process much more. And what was, Victoria, remind me of the second part of that?
And the second part of it was, or it's left open because it's waiting for a period of time just to confirm that the incident is truly resolved.
Sure. So that's always a balancing effort. Typically, we see this a lot in the ITS Service Center because we deal with a lot of tickets. It's very common and normal that when somebody's issue is resolved, they will stop paying attention to it, and they will really not have the cycles to communicate with us because it's no longer a priority issue for them. So it is normal and right, and we will publish a specific protocol on this to say, hey, I think we've solved your issue, or since I haven't heard from you, I don't think we can make any further progress on it. We're going to mark it closed in the Team Dynamics world as opposed to resolved, but we're certainly here to help you. So we have a particular protocol that we use in the Service Center that we can get out across ITS that involves 3 checkbacks with the customer, but it really is a normal part of our business now that we do not always have that perfect confirmation, and we just need to operate on the best information that we have. What other questions?
I think the other questions that have come up, we've been able to answer in the chat. So I'd refer people to take a quick look at the chat if you haven't been following it. And I think we're ready to move on to our next section.